All right. Thank you. So I'm Anna Marie Close. I'm the Metadata Initiatives Librarian at The Ohio State University. If you can hear sirens, we are just having our normal weekly tornado siren drill here in Columbus. I am currently the solo facilitator. I'm looking for a co-facilitator. And this is a wonderful group where people in the Samvera community can come and ask questions. And I have learned so much being a part of this group. We also collaborate on base metadata recommendations for Hyrax, Haiku, and Avalon. I haven't seen anything from Avalon lately in terms of our discussion points, but some amazing work has been done because of working groups that are offshoots of this interest group. So it's a great place to learn. It's a great place to mention issues, but we also further interoperability and sharing of metadata practices and documentation within the Samvera community. So we meet the fourth Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern, and I put a link to our wiki page, and we are hash metadata in the Samvera Slack channel. And so we've been having, as usual, our monthly open meetings. This is a great place to just drop in, even if you just want to come to one meeting or more meetings. So recently we have had invited demos. I'm very grateful that Margaret Keeby and Chrissy Reesmeyer came to give us an update on Project Surfliner. And that's related to work that was done in the M3 modeling group years ago. So that's really exciting when we see metadata work that is getting developed. And then thank you to Kai Stroud, who shared updates in terms of bulk racks. And again, really great for us to see how our work can be implemented in better ways. So related work is I posted a charter for the OAI documentation working group. We have three people that are going to work on that, including me, but we are open for more people to contribute to that group. So you can go follow that link to find the charter. And this builds on prior work to share documentation about OAI OAI implementation in the Samvera community. We found that it's not straightforward, but a lot of people have information and we want to share that. And as always, we collaborate and liaise with other Samvera groups, including the Samvera Roadmaps Alignment Group. So our next meeting is Tuesday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anna Marie. Seeing no questions in the Q&A, we'll move on to the next working group update, which is Brendan Quinn from Northwestern University to present the Cloud Deployment Working Group. Brendan?
That's right. Thanks. I don't have any slides prepared, but I'll drop some links into the Slack channel after this, just so people can click on them and not have to dig around. So thanks, everybody. I'm the facilitator of the Cloud Deployment Working Group, which is a new working group just recently formed. And so it came out of some communication that I was not part of, actually, but some communication with AWS about Archivematica. The Archivematica community worked with them to create an AWS reference architecture for their stack there. And so there was some back and forth with them about doing the same thing for the Samvera community. So we kind of figured we should get our ducks in a row, as it were, before meeting with Greg Ritter at AWS to talk about, what could we do to work with AWS to create a reference architecture, and what would be useful about that, and what would we need to get out of it, those kind of things. So that's what our initial meetings were about. And so we actually met with Greg recently, and that recording is actually up on our wiki. So if you check out the Cloud Deployment Working Group on the Samvera wiki, there's a link to the recording there there's a password right next to the link too, just so you see that. And so we kind of talked about, like, what is AWS higher education doing? Greg is the lead of University Libraries and Smart Campus Initiatives. So we kind of talked about things more generally there, like what is AWS doing with higher education, like more generally. So check that out if you missed it, or if you're curious, it's up there already. And then, so our first few meetings, we've been talking about gathering use cases in the community. So like sort of what are people doing with cloud deployment, like sort of just the members going around talking about our experiences, those kind of things. We're going to be talking about sort of the prior art within the community in terms of like how are people diagramming or making architectures. So there's the Helm charts for Hyrax and Haiku in the Hyrax repository for Kubernetes. And there's also some work recently on new racks to be built and deployed using Terraform into the AWS environment. So there's some like different threads happening. And so our group is going to try to pull all those threads together. And we meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 3 p.m. Eastern. Our next meeting is May 24th, I believe, the fourth Wednesday. And one last thing I want to say is just a big thank you to Heather Greer-Klein for getting the working group going. Like, I'm the facilitator, but I sort of came on after the fact, after the group was already sort of ramping up. So just extra shout out. Thank you, Heather, for getting this group going. That's it. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Brendan. Next up, we have Kai Stroud from softservebyscientists.com to talk about the Samvera Developer Onboarding Working Group. Kai?
Okay. Everybody should see some slides. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Kai Stroud. I'm the current facilitator of the Samvera Developer Onboarding Working Group. My pronouns are he, him. The goals of our working group are to create documentation and other resources designed to help Samvera development teams onboard a developer who has no Samvera experience, and then also create plans to ensure this documentation can stay up to date via scheduled reviews and updates. A lot of the things we've talked about are consolidating various places where documentation currently exists into fewer locations, and then also trying to focus on locations where the documentation is easy to update and maintain as far as being able to keep up with those goals. Here are our current members: Kate Sewell of SoftServe, Julie Hardesty of Indiana University, Heather Greer-Klein, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and also myself. These are some areas that we've identified as being focal points for this working group in no particular order. We've discussed that all of these locations we would like to point to each other so that if you don't find something in one location, you can find it in another. And then also, again, our target audience is mostly repository managers and those considering Hyrax, and then also DevOps persons who are responsible for deploying Samvera applications. So far, our working group, it's relatively new. I'd say at the time of the last Virtual Connect last May, we had just started our first phase, which was mostly a information gathering phase and planning phase. That has been completed. We decided from there that we wanted to start by focusing on the Hyrax README. And so we've also completed that phase earlier this year, mostly with the goal of updating outdated information in that README, and then also streamlining it to make it, moving some information that was better suited to a different location, and then keeping the README much more concise. Currently, we're in phase 3, which is looking at the Samvera knowledge base. We recently polled the community about usage and maintenance, and then I think in our next meeting, we're going to review the feedback that we got and decide how best to move forward, whether that's moving the relevant documentation elsewhere and sunsetting that site, or figuring out a dedicated maintainer, or possibly something else. And then the next step after that will actually be going and implementing those changes. After phase 3, we'll pick the next focus location and then just rinse and repeat. So if you would like to contribute, we're especially interested in supervisors and senior developers who have faced the challenge of developer onboarding, as well as new developers who can whose insight is really helpful for us to be able to decide what is useful for other new developers to the space. And then obviously anyone else who's interested is more than welcome to join. More eyes and ears are always appreciated. Currently, we're meeting on the second Wednesday of each month from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Our Slack channel is the Developer Onboarding WG channel. And then also we have a page in the wiki.
Thank you very much, Kai. Seeing no questions in the Q&A or other reasons not to move forward, we'll go to the next update on the agenda from the Participation Sustainability Working Group, presented by Kirsten Leonard from Pawnee. Kirsten?
Okay. Excuse me, I've got allergies going today, so forgive me if I have a coughing fit in the middle of this. Nothing to do with sustainability there if I can't continue to talk. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Kirsten Leonard. I'm one of the newbies to the Samvera community. I deeply appreciated all the sessions the last couple of days. While we've been a partner for a couple of years, we're a little bit different than many of the founders of the Samvera community. And so we're still trying to figure out our role and our place in all of this. And so I found all of that enormously helpful. I am a new board member as of January 1 of this year, and I also serve on the Communications and Outreach Working Group and the Board Finance Committee. So just a real quick how I even got involved in this project. So I serve as the executive director of a small private library consortia that's partnering with another consortium, the PALSI consortium, to leverage Samvera community work that has been in play for a number of years. To provide an IR solution to our many libraries. We have some big, but a lot of small libraries that couldn't do this on their own. So I'm not a developer. I've had past studies ages ago in Unix and Java, but I do not code today. My talent that I bring to the table, I suppose, is how to leverage community to solve the challenges of our libraries and thrive in this challenging and changing environment. Pawnee, our consortium, has committed to deep collaboration, as we call it, where we share staff, collections, and infrastructure, pretty much everything that goes on to provide shared services to our constituents. And then we've extended that to partner with other bodies to be able to do the work that we need to get done. So Pawnee and PALSI, but certainly SoftServe, who serves as our developer, they have the development talent and extending our capacity to work together. So as a new member, you know, with maybe a different set of talents, I came into this to try to find out how I might be able to support and sustain this community, because it's something that we are now going to highly depend upon. And I happened to come on the board, I think at the same time where I think some of these questions, now that the Samvera community is about 15 years old, are also thinking about what do we need to do in order to sustain the communities, particularly in the leadership roles that require quite a bit of time commitment to that. Oops. So one of the things I think everybody's aware of, the amount of work that's being done in this community is enormous. You're working together because you know that it's more powerful to do it together than to do it separately. As our motto currently states, this idea of how to organize ourselves in order to be as efficient and as effective as possible, I think is threaded through a lot of the updates I've seen in terms of the working groups. Kai's group in particular is kind of looking at the key underlying infrastructure that helps the Samvera community progress. So I want to be careful about how we characterize it. This is a collaboration, and everybody's work is needed in order to advance it. I guess one of the objectives behind this draft charter for this working group is to look at capacity gaps. So what's working well, but also looking at where we're having trouble finding leadership capacities The HireX Tech Lead is one of the centrally funded positions. That's an experiment that's going, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But this idea about what is the job that needs to be done and how can we best organize in order to be able to sustain that. And burnout was another one. I think the HireX Tech Lead and others can speak to this more definitively than I can, but clearly the idea is that we have these leadership roles that we need to be able to sustain. Everybody's contributing and we want to be able to sustain that activity, and then recognizing that burnout is for real in the library community. So what can we do, at least within our Samvera community, to help prevent that burnout? Oops. It's going ahead of me. So while this is still draft, some of the key scoping questions around this are the capacity questions. So what's work is not getting done because we lack capacity? Where do we have trouble getting contributors for and why? What new roles maybe need to be defined in order to increase efficiency or effectiveness across the community? And what support is needed for these leader role contributors? And then understanding a strategy and coordination alignment among the partners and users of Samvera. So I mentioned one of the things is we're haiku. So we're coming at this maybe with a bunch of small libraries, but who look at the Samvera code stack from a different seat than perhaps others do. So all of the institutions that are involved in the Samvera community have core needs about why they're engaged in this product. In this project and in this community. So how are each of those institutions sustaining and prioritizing their own contributions, their own development, their own community, their own technology staff? And how do the Samvera community needs align with those institutional priorities and that willingness to commit staff time to this collaboration? And then the last one is this collaboratively funded positions. In the HireX Tech Lead, how has that impacted the community? How does it benefit the community's capacity, effectiveness, and overall benefit to partners? How's the paid model, the Samvera community paid model compared to an individual institutional contributor approach, especially for these complex roles that require a lot more time devoted every month to move these objectives forward? So there's a number of different pieces to this as we're starting to flesh out kind of like what is the question that we're looking at, and they're all pretty broad in nature. And as I mentioned, while we haven't even completely finished the charter, we're continuing to think about the experiments. In addition to the HireX Tech Lead role, you'll, I'm sure, have noted the effort to collaboratively fund work to be done to get us over the hump on some of the Valkyrization of HireX. And so that pledge drive is to get some central funds to have some dedicated sprints in May and June here that will be coupled with our current process of having developer sprints. So if you're interested in participating in this, we welcome other participants in this. There's a wiki page for it. Just put your name down or contact me or Heather Gerklein. All right, that's it for me.
Thank you very much. The next presentation on the list is from the Samvera End User Documentation Working Group, presented by Jessica Hilt from UCSD. Is Jessica here or someone else from that working group? Right, well, maybe we'll move on then to the Samvera Roadmaps Alignment Group update from Heather Greer-Klein.
Thanks, Nick. Just one sec here. Hi, folks. I'm Heather Greer-Klein. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Samvera Community Manager. Just going to share a little update from the Roadmaps Alignment Group, which is sort of a unusual, special group when it comes to working in interest groups in our community. So the membership of the Roadmaps Alignment Group is just based on folks' roles in the community, sort of community leadership roles. So we have our product owners for the different Samvera supported technologies, and we have a representative from component maintenance, from Samvera metadata, and then it's vacant right now, but the Samvera repository management interest group is getting started again, which I'm really excited about. You'll hear about that shortly, but they'll have a role as well, and then myself. So this group was created by the Samvera board a couple of years ago. It's gone through a few different iterations, but mostly this group is a way for cross-project collaboration to happen regularly and easily. I also think about this as this is a really important group for me as the community manager. So I see an important part of my role as making sure that I'm aware of what's going on across the technologies and in all of our interest groups. And whenever I identify an opportunity for folks to work together towards the same effort, or if they're working on things that are similar, I want to make sure that they communicate with each other and can work together. So this is a group that really helps me to do that. So lately, since October, when we last gave our update, we meet or check in about every 2 weeks. So I say meet in person maybe once a month, and then once a month we'll do a Slack check-in if we don't have agenda items. These are all busy folks. They're all chairing other groups that meet in addition to their existing roles in their institutions. So we feel like it's important not to meet just to meet. So if all we have are updates, we'll just do an update in Slack, ask each other questions there. And if we have something more substantial to talk through, then we'll meet in person on Zoom, or not in person. I wish we meet on Zoom. So some things that we've been doing, we helped James Griffin find product owners for all the Samvera components. We helped with organizing some of that work. This group helped me figure out the structure for a charter for the Cloud Development Working Group. When I realized that was coming up often enough, I felt like we had to get out in front of it, but wasn't quite sure, didn't quite have the technical skills to sort that out. So these folks helped me. And then while we were moving over the new Rex testing server, this was a great place for me to ask questions and help get that organized. This is also a group that the board can ask questions of, and I can make sure that there's communication between these community leaders and the board and their monthly meeting. I want to highlight that this group also helps out with planning and making sure that there's topics for developer congresses. Developer Congress is open to any developers or testers at any level. It's a great way to learn more about community development, contributing to the community. It's an unconference style, so anyone can bring activities or topics or ideas, good for seasoned or new developers alike, and we have one towards the end of this month. Later in 2023, we're hoping to start working on some of the outcomes of the List of Dreams activity that emerged as part of our strategic planning that we undertook last year as part of the It Takes a Village toolkit, including we would like to write a new white paper. There was a white paper in 2019 for Samvera Technologies, definitely ready to be updated. That needs to wait until after the Valkyrized Hyrax milestone 1 is completed. So if you're able to contribute to that Hyrax Valkyrization effort, either contribute developers or contribute financially to the pledge drive that Palny is running, that would be wonderful. This is really, really critical work. There's a lot of things we can't do in the community until it starts to move forward. And that's true for the roadmap alignment group as well. So we're on Slack. We have an open channel. You're welcome to jump in and say hello. And that's it from me.
Thanks so much, Heather. The last update is from the Repository Managers Interest Group, presented by Emily Porter from Emory University. Emily?
Hello. I get my screen up here. Just wanted to give a really quick update about the Repository Management Interest Group. Somebody is sharing the wrong presentation. There we go. There we go. We're presenting later today. So, but yes, we are back. We're back from being in a sunsetted state. Very quickly, some of you may be familiar with this group, which used to be around, I think it goes back to at least 2017, perhaps earlier. But this group used to be called the Project and Service Management Group. And then later it became called the Repository Management Group. Unfortunately, it sunsetted about 3 years ago due to just kind of lack of membership. But I was really interested. I really missed this group. So we had a Birds of a Feather session at Samvera Connect, just kind of see if there was still interest in the group. Been pinging the repository management Slack channel, and fortunately we got enough folks to be interested in starting that up again. So we had our first kickoff meeting last month. Next slide. So we kind of looked at the old charter and kind of the iterations of this group over the years. And what we really want to focus on is less about project management or IT service management frameworks or anything quite that specific, but really think about what are best practices for operating a successful repository. So kind of like the day-to-day life of managing a Samvera repository. We also want to represent use cases and the different user bases for the Samvera products and the features that get developed. So we want to be an input into to help with the product managers for our respective products. And we talked about, we kind of structured a life cycle base for agenda topics. So whether you're in new repository startup mode, are you in an operational repository mode, or are you transitioning a repository? So particularly in the operational repository catalog, we have a really long list of things that we want to talk about already. So we won't be doing this like in sequence, but really more about what's going on in your world right now that you want to talk to other people about. So you're welcome to join us. We'll be starting to post information about kind of what's coming next, what we're going to be talking about. We have landed on a time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. We unfortunately, in part because of what Heather was just describing, a lot of folks are already in so many meetings that it's hard for us to say a particular week of the month, but we're going to be scheduling it month by month. So we have the repository management channel on Slack. You can see the charter and other information on the wiki. We'll send emails to the Samvera community list. And I really want to thank those who volunteered to start us up again. And also thank you to Heather for getting us up and running again.